Producer engineer Mark Howard talks about a very special moment. It gave me goosebumps when I heard this moment. When he first worked with Brian Eno, of course, is famous for Music of Airports, working with so much ambient, beautiful music, and of course, Peter Gabriel. But something happened on this visit, which you'll find very interesting and magical. Mark Howard, Daniel Lanois, and Brian Eno. Brian Eno, I programmed new age music for a long time, and I
Okay,
know he
cool.
probably
Right.
hate that term, but
Yeah.
I love that kind of music for
Ambient.
airports. So I love all that stuff. But what was your impression of him, and what was he like to work with? And I remember the airport story. You did bring the
Yeah,
sign,
yeah.
right?
Dan said, take a sign, and I refused to take a sign. I was too embarrassed to hold up a sign. That's not cool, man. I'll find him somehow. I didn't know what he looked like. But yeah, I just stood there. In those days, you could walk right to the gate when people came off
Yeah.
the thing, and I just go, Brian, 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 Brian. No, and then Brian, before I even said that, he looked at me, and I knew it was him. And he said, Mark, and I said, yeah, that's me. And so that's how it started. And then and then Dan said, I want you to work with Brian in the mornings, just you and him. And so so this is kind of like where I started to learn how is ambient music is made, and how technically on how things are done. And so we were working on this one song, and we had these bells that we had taken and slowed down, and so it's like boom. So it's like as thinking about recording, like he's always got these weird kind of abstract ways of mixing and getting sounds. And then we were putting these he has this thing called a DX7 keyboard. It's like an old
Everyone
keyboard that
had
was
one in the 80s, it seems.
legendary. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he reprogrammed it, and he put up all of his own sounds in it. He's the master of it. And so one day we're in the studio, I have the window open, and there's these bugs in New Orleans called cicadas, and they would make this like this kind of creepy kind of sound. And so Brian had this patch called insects. So he would play like these little melodies with these insect sounds, like, and then he'd stop, and then the insects from outside went, like, did you hear that? He goes, yeah. I said, play a different melody. He plays a different melody, and they follow it. So he's communicating with these insects. It's so bizarre. It was incredible. I left school when I was 15, and I thought maybe I wanted to be an architect. And I found this company in Hamilton, Ontario called Howard Mark Architects. And I thought, my name's Mark Howard. They'll probably hire me for sure. I went there and I showed him all these drawings I had of all these futuristic buildings and houses. Because these are fantastic. He said, go back to school, get your grade 12, and I'll hire you. And so,
But didn't the guidance counselor tell you, what did the guidance counselor tell you before that happened?
oh, so yeah, so I wanted to quit school, and I was missing a lot of classes, and she was, I remember her name, Mrs. Shanosky, and she was like a little witchy woman. Yeah, yeah. And so I said, look, I want to get out. And she goes, you're just going to be nothing but a criminal and end up in jail. I said, all right, okay, we'll see if I go. And years later, it made me stronger to, like, I have to prove now that I'm gonna, like, surpass all that stuff. I'm not a criminal, and I'm not going to jail ever. And so, yeah, so it was pretty nutty. Yeah.
That was a defining moment too, though, because I have moments like that where people say, "Oh, you'll never start a major market radio," and part of me going, "Yeah." And really, when I said that, I didn't believe it. I go, he's probably right. But what the hell? I'm going to try a little harder. What was her name? Mrs. what?
Shanosky.
Shanosky. Well,
She's still alive and sees this.
a friend of mine was telling me, he was saying that, he says, I told him I was going to talk to you. He says, there's this picture. He says, there's this picture where I think it was the Joni Mitchell one, where you're looking on the side. I think it's Joni in the back. Was it Joni? But he said, he looks like the coolest dude in the world, man. You're looking like a dude in a lot of those pictures, man. You're looking like, it's really like you, obviously you get in the room because you've got the talent, you know how to act, you're comfortable in your skin, especially around them. But there's that element in rock and roll that there's a certain coolness to be able to do that. And you can tell the fakers usually,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you seem like you're comfortable in your skin in those pictures.
Yeah, yeah. I just in the earlier ones, I had long hair or whatever, and and then at one point I'd cut my hair really short, but then I thought, oh, I'm going to grow it back, and so there's like a different periods where I've got short hair and then long hair and a beard and stuff, but now I've got no hair because cancer. Thank you, and so I support a different look.
Links to both of Mark Howard's books are in the description where you can pick them up. One is the storybook, basically telling the stories about working with all the greats: Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, Tom Waits, Tragically Hip, and so many more. So we'll have links to both books. Like I said, the first one's the storybook, the second one is basically the pictures book. We've showed you some pictures in the videos. Links to that and a lot more. If you want to help the channel, there are links. Subscribe, check out our podcast. It's a fairly new podcast. It's doing really, really well, and you can hear a lot of our full interviews on our podcast. Share our videos and podcasts and like, comment. We'd appreciate that. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Music. Take care of yourself.